Alrighty, my name is Barry Ramey, and I am co-founder of WeTheJ6ers.com. We are a new organization that is trying to get our men and women that were political hostages of the U.S. government for the January 6th debacle to get their stories out, to let their voices be heard, and give them a platform to tell the American people what they have experienced in their process of the judicial system and their experience in prison. A lot of these men and women were not treated as your average citizens that were just routinely sent to prison for an alleged crime that they were convicted for. Oh no. These men and women were treated much differently. They were treated as domestic terrorists. Our government labeled its political opposition and constituents of its political opponent as domestic terrorists, and we were treated as such. We aim to allow these men and women to tell their stories to you so you can see what they went through, hear what their experience, and we can work together as a society to hopefully change the way that our judicial system, our prison system, and the Department of Justice operates. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to end the Patriot Act and its egregious spying and encroachment of the Fourth Amendment on U.S. citizens. Today, I have a guest and one of the WeTheJ6ers.com official speakers, Shane Jenkins. And Shane and I are going to have a story about Shane's political prisoner experience and what it was like for him at the DC Gulag, along with sentencing, being arrested, and what it's like for him as a person and a patriot now that this experience is over and he has received a full pardon from the United States President Donald J. Trump. Shane, my brother, welcome.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Hey, no worries, man. It's we were once in orange jumpsuits and eating bologna sandwiches and allegedly making alcohol out of apples that I cannot confirm or deny ever happened. But this is a far stretch of where we once were. I can say that. How about you?
It is it, man. It is a blessing to be out here. Thank God for President Trump, and I'm just honored to be a part of what you're doing here with the J6ers, and just happy to have this conversation with you. Man.
Absolutely. Better than most that a narrative was told about the people we are, the reasons we went to January 6th, what actually happened. Our cases were thrown about in the media, and none of it was ever really accurate. And I mean, I could speak for myself. I was silenced in prison. I was not allowed to talk to the media. I was thrown in the shoe and threatened for just even thinking about talking to the media. So, it's only now that we can start to tell the people, this is who we are, and this is what was going through our head that day. So, I'm going to start off there with you, Shane. Um, you first. Let me start here. You're an individual that you were in and out of prison throughout your life, and you had a defining moment way before January 6th where you had a religious awakening and you became a different person. So start there before January 6th. Before that, what was Shane Jenkins' life like up until that point?
Yeah, I found out when I was a very young man. So first off, I know I don't look like your typical private school student with all my tattoos and all that, but I did go to a All Saints Episcopal School in West Fort Worth as a young man and got a good education through my elementary school years. And, at the age of 12 or 13, found out I was adopted and really had a adverse reaction to finding this out. It came under an argument, under duress with the argument with my sister. And she looked at my mom and told my mom, she's like, if you don't tell him, I'm going to tell him. And I looked at my mom and I was like, tell me what? And my mom was like, I'll talk to you later. And later that night, I guess I was like 12 years old. I guess I was in about the eighth grade or so, seventh or eighth grade. And my mom sat down with me and she told me that I was adopted. And I had a really immature reaction to that because I felt like the kid at school who has the sign that somebody stuck on his back, like the kick me sign or whatever. And I felt like everybody was in on the joke but me. I felt like my adopted family had lied to me this whole time. I felt like Shane Jenkins was a lie. Like that whole thing that I was living is just a lie. And then So I felt betrayed by my adopted family, which was an immature way to react to that situation. And then on the other hand, I started to question like my biological mom in the aspect of, I saw the baby pictures of me, the red haired, freckle faced little blue eyed baby. And I was like, man, I was a cute kid. I was like, what was so wrong with me? What's so wrong with Shane that my own mom didn't even want me and that she could throw me away like that? And so I was this wounded, little, immature, angry young boy. And I had an opportunity to create what I thought a man was. And at that age, it was like Goodfellas or some kind of mobster fighter type person that was feared or respected when they came in a room. I thought that was what, power and respect was what a man was. When I, as I know now, it's very far from the truth. Um, so I turned down a really dark path and, started skipping school, dropped out of sports and athletics, and really just kind of took a dark path from that point forward. Ended up dropping out of school. I was in juvenile prison by the age of 15. Ended up getting a 2 to 4 year sentence at the age of 16, and did 2 to 4 years for a gang related shooting where my friends shot and killed. I was 16 at the time when it happened. My friends shot and killed a 16-year-old and shot two more people while I was in the car with them. I did my 3 years for that. Kind of got my life a little bit back on track. I was playing sports in there and got my GED. Then I got my high school diploma. They started busing me into town. And I was going to junior college. And so things kind of got back to normal and I got out. And my mom married this alcoholic and drug addict, but a Vietnam War hero. And so about after a year, he went to jail twice for beating my mom. And I was working like two jobs. And so I wasn't around at home a lot. And all this kind of got back to me. And one night I confronted my stepdad. He confronted me. Long story short, he shot at me with the 20 gauge shotgun. I shot him. I shot at him 13 times and hit him 11 times and killed him. He died on the way to the hospital. So at the age of 16, watched my friend shoot and kill a guy, shoot two more people. Then after I've been out a year, I shot and killed my stepdad in self-defense. The grand jury no-billed me. But here I am, 20 years old, and I've taken a life by my own hands. And people were like, hey, because the grand jury no-billed me. So basically they saw there was no crime committed. It was done in self-defense. I was actually on the phone with 911 while I was shooting, and my mom was standing right next to me, and he was coming at us with the shotgun. So it was a clean shoot, but that clean, justified under the law, didn't make it justified in my heart. And I had a very hard time coming to peace with that in my spirit and in my heart. And I really carried a lot of guilt and a lot of shame for killing somebody that I lived with, somebody that my mom was married to, somebody who was a war hero. I knew his son. I knew, he was a human being at the end of the day. And so it was just a lot for me to handle. And at that point in my life, I turned to drugs and alcohol really, really hard because I had this war going on in my spirit. Part of me was like saying he got what he deserved. And the other part was like, that was a human being. That was somebody's life that you took. So to numb that chaos and unsettled feeling in my stomach and my spirit, I turned to drugs and alcohol. And I, was running the streets, fighting, selling drugs, using drugs. And I had a hole in my heart at this point, and I was trying to fill it with anything that would numb that pain, whether it was women, alcohol, drugs, power, money, violence, whatever it was. I used to get in a lot of fights, and I had a chip on my shoulder pretty bad. Which kind of brings me about to where you were talking about earlier. I've been called a lot of things: a drug dealer, a drug user, a bully, whatever. I haven't really been called a bully, but I've been in a lot of fights. But I've never been called a domestic terrorist, And if it was something that was legitimate, I could understand it. But and I know you asked me. So I went to prison 3 times as an adult, and right before I went in for the third time, my adopted mom died, and God, I feel like, knew what he was doing. I was in there. I was all alone. I didn't have anybody do it because my mom used to do my time with me. She'd come visit me. She'd send me money. She would take my phone calls. She would write me letters. She would get me newspapers and magazine. It was just like, she felt at ease because she felt like I was safe in there. She didn't have to worry at night. Like, was I going to get shot? She going to have to get called to a crime scene, or was going to be in prison? What was going on? And so, this last trip I went in, and parole had denied me 3 times in a row in Texas. And I found out about this program, and it was based around the life of Jesus Christ. It's actually kind of circles around to where we're at today with the political realm. It was started by Chuck Colson, who was the axeman for Watergate. He took the fall for Richard Nixon. And prior to him going to prison, he had an encounter with Jesus Christ, and he went into prison, met all the men in there like you and I did, met people in there, good people. Not all of them good people, but some people good people, and feel left behind and abandoned by the system. And when he got out, they looked at him and they said, "Chuck, don't forget about us." And he said, "I'm not going to forget about you." And so when he got out, he used all his political connections, because he was the X-Man for Richard Nixon, and he had a lot of connections, and he used that to start a program called the Prison Fellowship Program. So my last trip, right after my mom had died and everything, I'm in prison, and I volunteered for that program. Not a believer, but I knew if I got admitted to the program, I would have to do 18 months in that program, and then I would get released. And so I signed up for it, and man, I wasn't at that prison program for 30 days. And I gave my life to Christ at a ministry event put on by Charm Prison Ministry. But it was a day that, altered the trajectory of my life, man. I really, in that moment, I understood that, Christ called me son, but he's also my brother. He said he's never going to leave me nor will forsake me. And there is no guilt and shame in Christ. So really those things that I was carrying, those wounds of a young boy by his family and adopted mom and biological mom, and the guilt and shame that I carried, I could lay that at the foot of the cross, and I didn't have to carry that anymore. It really impacted my life.
Well, that's awesome. So let's go to that day, January 6th. If you could say, I'm sure there was multiple reasons, but if you could say there was one reason that was the main reason that you felt compelled to go to Washington, D.C. that day, what would that reason be?
Well, the main reason was I felt like, if not me, then who? Because I didn't know anybody that was going. And I wanted the 5 swing states that were lost by very, very small margins, that 8 to 15,000 vote range. And we had all seen the videos of it, Fulton County, and just these questions about Dominion and all these different things, right? And so I felt like it was my duty as a citizen to encourage Congress to contest the certification of the election, and then give them a timeline for sending those electors back to those states and doing their due diligence to make sure that the American people don't lose their confidence in the voting thing. And if they came back and they said there's nothing wrong, we figured out what that video was, or what this claim was, or that was, then okay, Donald Trump lost. But I think we got into a situation where the machine staged a riot to sweep the people who wanted to protest the election under the rug, and the Congress people and the senators that wanted to do that. So,
Okay. And let me ask you this: throughout the day on January 6th, did you go into the building, and what was the most nefarious or questionable thing that you witnessed that day that really made you wonder what happened, and why things got so out of control? So A, did you go to the building, and B, what was the most strangest thing you saw?
I did not go in the building, um, but what I was not prepared for was when I climbed over the Lower West Terrace little barrier wall. It was a concrete wall. It wasn't even really a wall, like a rail. And there was people crying and bloodied, and and washing, I guess it was CS gas or tear gas, pepper spray, whatever it is, out of their face, um, and just people being bloodied and brutalized. And it seemed like to me that there was a pattern of it being women and elderly men, and that really was something that stood out to me. There was no help coming from law enforcement as far as people injured, wounded, or hurt, and I didn't see anybody who was wounded. I didn't see them do anything that merited them being beaten or assaulted. And I would be the first to stand up and say, hey, that guy hit that cop with a baseball bat. He deserved what he got, or he tried to hit the cop or whatever. He needed his butt whooped, but I just didn't see that.
Well, yeah, I can contest to that and corroborate it. That's for sure. And I know that a lot of people can. And these are the types of things that we're hoping to be able to show the public. Let me ask you this, Shane. Did you did you have any ill will in your heart that day? Did you go to Washington D.C. with any intentions of any violence towards Capitol police officers or any government official, or did you have any intention to stop any government action from happening that day?
Absolutely not. And so a lot of people might wonder, do your due diligence, look me up. I did have a tomahawks. I did have one of these special operations group survival hatchets is what they're called on me that day. But if you also go look up, there was previous rallies at the end of 2020 after the election before January 6th, and there were multiple people stabbed in DC. And we know that there was Antifa and BLM in the area. And we were told prior to January 6th that they were going to be dressed up as Trump supporters. They were going to be trying to cull people from the crowd. People would be assaulted, stabbed, beaten, felony assaulted, and robbed, or whatever they were going to do. And so I came prepared. I didn't have any idea that the police were going to be brutalizing people, and that they were going to be the ones that I was going to try to keep from hurting people. And so, no, there was no intentions of obstructing an official proceeding of the government. But what I did, 99% of the men that I was in the DC jail with for 32 months, not one of them could I say, well, maybe one or two out of 100. The 99 or 98 of those, they witnessed a police officer push a woman down the stairs, watched the police officers tackle a woman and punch her or beat her, and then they jumped into it. And most of these people are first responders, law enforcement, prison guard officers, military, Green Berets, Army Rangers, whatever they are, and they're trained in this type of situation to respond and react in that situation. And so, not only did I not have ill will, but I have yet to see January 6 people that I feel like went there to the Capitol that day with ill intentions. Did people get caught up in the moment? Did people get hurt and then react in anger? Or absolutely. Did people see other people being hurt, find out about Ashley Babbitt being shot, witness Roseanne Bowen being murdered on the Lower West Terrace steps and react in anger? Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that is I mean we're seeing the videos now finally come out, and I think it's safe to assume that a lot of the footage and the CCTV footage that needs to be released will show that even more, because it seems like every time they release video, what we've been saying since the beginning becomes confirmed. So, there's that. Um, when you Let's go to the day that you were arrested. What did that look like for you? Simply give me what did the takedown look like? What did the FBI do and say? And just give me that day, what it looked like for you.
Well, they sent at about 6:30 a.m. here in West Houston. I was at a Charm Prison Ministry house, and the FBI had been asking people that I was actually a part of a Call of Duty gaming clan, and they had been calling those people and asking them if they knew who I was. And so I knew that the FBI was looking for me. I went so far as to call the FBI here in Houston, ask for the agent who had been asking questions about me by name, and attempt to go to the FBI, have a conversation, sit down with them to avoid what they were doing, because I saw what they were doing. They were rounding people up. They were looking for the big pomp and headline. They wanted what I really feel like they wanted. They came armed for bear, and what they really were hoping for was that somebody would have a weapon or something like that and would get in a shootout with the cops so they could say, see, this is what you're dealing with. These are what those people are doing. And so when they came to my house, it was Houston SWAT, FBI. They pulled up in an armored personnel carrier with a megaphone, and the top popped on it with them yelling, Shane Jenkins, this is Houston SWAT and the FBI. You need to come out with your hands up, and just repeating that over and over and over again. And they sent the head of the Houston District's Joint Terrorism Task Force, which is the person tasked with hunting down people like, I guess, jihadis or ISIS or Al Qaeda or Timothy McVeigh's or Ted Kaczynski's in the area. But they sent them for me because of a political rally in the Capitol on January 6th. And so I went out the front door, and they had lasers pointed at my chest behind a ballistic shield.
Not to interrupt you, but that really is something that people need to understand how dangerous that is, to where an administration can redefine the narrative and the context of what defines a domestic terrorist, and then send men and women trained to actually combat that at you because they don't agree with your behavior in support of their political opposition. Put your feelings aside for a second. What happened that day on January 6th, just think about that for a second. If you're one of these imbeciles that believes January 6th was a domestic terrorist attack, then there's nothing I can do to help you. You probably believe Rosie O'Donnell is an attractive woman. We're fucking done here. Okay. But if you really think about that for a second, and I think it would be, it would be the same to say, okay, if the Republicans deemed these pink hat liberal idiots in DC that march down the street as domestic terrorists because they don't like their message, I would have a problem with that because it's dangerous. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. Go back there. Sorry, but the laser dots. What were you saying?
No, you're good. And after the fact, I got my paperwork from the FBI, and they had labeled me a tier 1 anti-government extremist.
Unbelievable.
When you say tier 1, I'm talking about Osama bin Laden or the people from 9/11 or whatever. And it's like, I understand if you're like, I broke a window or I threw sticks at the police, or sure, like, by all means, arrest me, investigate, whatever, punish me, do whatever. But
we're not negating that maybe we did something wrong or we don't deserve to be punished. We're not saying that's not what we're saying here.
No, and it's a dangerous whenever it's an ideology or a political side of the spectrum that they are against. It's one thing like to want to hold them accountable. It's another thing to want to just destroy them and drag them through the street, drag their families through the mud, cancel them, dox them. Not only that, but fly us across the nation, put us under, and I believe we were under some kind of Patriot Act. That's why I don't believe people could look us up in the DC jail. It was like they had us hidden in the DC jail and people couldn't find us online. It was very difficult.
It's 100% true that the language in the Patriot Act is what gave them the ability to do a lot of these unwarranted and unconstitutional searches and seizures and surveillance on us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you got the lasers pointed at you. What's going? What does that look like?
Well, so I opened the front door, and they're behind a ballistic shield, with their rifles pointed at me, yelling at me to get on the ground. And no sooner could I get out the door, I didn't really get a chance to turn and close the door, but I have a half Great Dane and half pit bull named Rocky, and he sounds ferocious, and he's big. He probably weighs like 120 pounds, and looks like a giant pit bull. And he's like, roar, roar, running out the door. And I'm like, all I could think is they're going to kill my dog. And so I basically tackle him, grab him, and I throw him in the house. And I'm like, please don't kill my dog. I just thought, man, they're going to kill my dog. But I was like, he is all bark, no bite. And they took me to the ground, handcuffed me, put me in the car. I told them that I wanted to talk to my attorney. I wasn't talking to anybody. And then the Houston SWAT in their defense did come back and say, we just want you to know, we told him, like you said, to kennel up, and he went straight in his kennel, and they just locked his door. And so they were like, we love dogs, and they were gentle in that aspect, but it was more the posturing than the behavior. I know they were doing their job and they were very professional in the way they did it. However, that type of action didn't warrant that presentation of arms and the way they behaved.
Well, you're not only are you correct, but you're correct on so many different levels. Um, America got a chance to get to know Special Agent Stephen Friend and Kyle Seraphin. These were both special agents and different task force in the FBI. Stephen Friend wrote a book, True Blue. I read it in prison. I highly recommend people that want to know more about why the FBI went out J6ers the way they did. And to put it in a simple context, as Stephen Friend does so brilliantly in his book, True Blue, that the FBI went during right shortly as Donald Trump's term was ending, the FBI asked for an egregious amount of money and federal funding to combat domestic terrorism. And they were granted this money from Congress. And that when January 6th happened, they used that narrative to justify this budget they got. So they came at all of us with the different tactical teams. They labeled us as domestic terrorists. They brought out the Bearcats, the fucking helicopters, the drones, the hit squads. They don't behave that way with even actual terrorists. The FBI is so good at what they do, or they're supposed to be, that by the time they're ready to arrest you, they know where you're going to be. They know who you're with. You're not armed. They surround you. They take you in, no problem. Most of us had lawyers. Most of us were going to the same jobs and homes. We were not running. We were not going anywhere. And the way they came at us was it was so against their own bylaws and protocols, as these brave FBI agents have stated that, that's why they did it, because they needed to justify that the expenditures in the budget they got. Think about that, how a Department of Justice, in order to justify money that they've asked from the U.S. taxpayers, they can just label a group of people terrorists to do so. They
needed to use those funds so they could ask for more. Let me put it in perspective for a second. On the news, it was really big this past weekend. They had about 425 ICE arrests for illegals, for like child trafficking, sexual charges, rape, and murder. And they showed a bunch of videos of the police and ICE and all these people arresting those people. Not one of those people had a ballistic shield, a rifle, a ballistic helmet, any one of those things.
Yeah.
That they had. They didn't have the armored personnel carrier, any of those things for these people who are legitimate murderers, rapists, child sex predators, whatever. And they're arresting 400 of them over the weekend. They're not using those big, heavy things that you would come at somebody who is a legitimate terrorist with.
Pay attention, America. We're here to tell our stories now, and that's what we, the J6ers.com. It's not just about January 6th. We're not here to say to create a pity party. We're here to tell our stories and show how this is being repeated in our society, and what we can do as a community of patriotic America First Americans to do something about it. So that's what we aim to do. This is not just about January 6th. It's how we can stop this type of bullshit from happening again.
Well, and one other thing too, if I could say for a second,
Please.
we're not against law enforcement. We support law and order, but what I do not support is, where are the good men that are willing to say, you know what, like, these guys broke the law, but y'all are going too hard in this situation? Where are the men that are going to say, you know what, here's my badge, I'm not doing this, I'm not going. We had a few of those, like you named Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin and others, but we need people to stand for what's right. And it doesn't matter, like you said, if it was whoever, the purple and turquoise haired ladies screaming at the top of their lungs for they want to murder babies, whatever. We don't want the government weaponized against those people either. We want free speech, and we want freedom from tyranny. for everybody, even the people whose voices are like fingernails on the chalkboard.
Facts. Facts. And let's be honest. If these screaming leftist psychopaths were ever gone completely, man, I would miss them. I would wake up like, what is the internet even good for now? And it's the same thing with the MAGA hat. I mean, I used to go out and get harassed and called a bigot, and people want to fight me, and that's the whole fucking reason I wear it anymore. But now I go out, everyone's like, I like your hat, bro. Hey man, fist bump, nice hat. Hey man, cool hat. Fuck you. Where's the hat? I want to fight somebody because I'm wearing a hat. God
Did you
damn
see
it.
Did you see my skeleton? This is Tom Tillis.
I did. I have an
his
idea.
Political career anyway.
So I have an idea for your show with this. I'm glad you brought this up because I almost forgot. I'm looking at your skeleton, and I think a segment you should do is put a wig on it and stick it in the corner, and once in a while get a Nancy Pelosi cam where you ask Nancy Pelosi her opinion about the situation. Of course, it'll never say nothing, but
right.
the skeleton with the wig will be Nancy Pelosi. Put a bottle of vodka in its hand, and yeah, call it a day, and that'll be your co-host, Skeleton Pelosi, Grandma Vodka.
There you go. I like that. That's good.
So let's go to this. We're gonna have plenty of time to get your story out there in great detail. I want this to be more or less teasers right now because Shane, you have a very in-depth, intricate story. You've got a chance. Like you said, I think it was 32 months in DC or 36 months.
Yeah, 32 months. Yeah.
You got to see a lot of these guys come in there that were dealing with, at different points in fighting their case, and you got to witness a lot of egregious behavior from the Department of Justice and for different people. So you've got a lot of these stories to tell. And at we the J6ers.com, that's what we're hoping. It's what we're going to do. We're not hoping. We're going to be a bull in a fucking china shop. I'll tell you that much. But give me one thing. It could be your case. It could be another case. You don't have to name the person if you don't want to. But what is the most fucked up thing? And excuse my language, but what is the most messed up thing you've seen the prosecution or a public defender or the government do in somebody's case that they were trying to fight?
I mean, there was any number of things. They used. There's so many layers to it. One is not very many. I'll just say in my case, they offered me a plea offer of 92 to 115 months, and which is, I don't know, 7.5 to whatever, 10 years, something like that. Almost 10 years, yeah, 7.5 to 9.5 years. But they said, if you don't take that plea offer, we're going to supersede your indictment and we're going to charge you with this 20-year felony called the 1512, which was the obstruction of Congress, which the Supreme Court ended up throwing out later on. But I mean, I think it was a good idea. I told them whenever they offered me that plea offer, I said, I would love to consider your plea offer, but I don't negotiate with terrorists. And they superseded me, and it bumped my points up, and it gave me much more. It was just a bad deal. And so, what the sad thing was is I was uniquely situated because my children do live with their mothers, and I was not married, and I didn't have a business or a home that I was fighting to protect or whatever. So I was able to say, you know what, I wouldn't, and I said this, I wouldn't care if you told me you were going to give me 10 months. And I wouldn't care if you told me you were going to give me 10,000 months. I'm not taking it. You can tell me I'm never going to ever get out of prison again, and I'm not taking a plea offer because I cannot stand a bully. And to see them use people's families, to use the way they denied us our rights in the DC jail, whether it was visits, haircuts, religious services, fingernail clippers. They flew me 1,000 miles from home, away from any moral support that I had. And then they use the Department of Justice to just crush us. And I watch people's family members die. I watch people go through divorces. I watch them lose their homes. I watch them lose their businesses. I watch churches turn their back on people. I watch people's family turn their back on people. I watch people's family testify against them at sentencing or at trial. And they used, in this situation, it was the process that was the punishment. And so you've got these people. In my situation, like we've said, is I have a criminal history. But the part that was the most egregious to me was that you had many, many people who were in our armed forces or first responders, that's police, prison guards, or military, who offer up life and limb to protect society. And you weaponize this whole system against these people. And these people have never been in trouble in their lives. And for them to endure that was a whole nother level of nefariousness to me, because these people had no experience with this and they didn't understand it. And it was like they're stuck there. And I'm like, man, this is the way it's going to be. And they just wanted to crush us, and they wanted to quench anybody's desire for to use their First Amendment right and protest. Anytime it was like, well, we're going to have a January 6th thing to commemorate what happened on January 6th and honor the guys locked up. And people are like, hell no, we're not going to DC, because you see what they're doing to them. They're not going to do that to us. And so they used this whole process. I know that was a long one reason answer, but the process was the punishment. And I think that was really a sad thing.
What was one of the most touching and beautiful moments you've seen in your time in the DC jail, of the guys coming together and leaning on one another to get through a hard time?
Oh, there's a few things. Every night we would sing the anthem at 9:00, and there was days that song just beat me down, man. Or you've been singing it for 600 days in a row, and you're like, I'm just tired of doing this. But at the same time, it was like we didn't get along. We fought like brothers, literally and metaphorically. But we would always stand together and sing the anthem. And then on the holidays, the guards were blown away by the fact that we would have meals together. We would all pitch in together, and we would make big, Thanksgiving meals or Christmas meals or whatever it was. And then the Hopium Dens.
4th of July, baby.
4th of July, yeah. Yeah, we had some good times. There was definitely, I had those men, like, it was an honor. You too, Barry. It was an honor to suffer alongside those men, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't give it up. People ask me, would you do it all over again? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would behave a little better, but I would definitely do it. I would do it again. People, that's the side that they don't hear from us is, yes, I have regrets about my behavior that day, but I do not regret going that day. I do not, and I would go again in a heartbeat. But yes, I would behave a little better, But Donald Trump didn't make me do anything. The Proud Boys didn't make me do anything. I made my own damn decisions, and at one point they didn't work out best for me. But again, like you said, you get tired of seeing people get assaulted and injured and hit and hurt, and as men, we fight back.
That's right. That's right.
What do you? We don't have to get into in specifics, and there's so many things out there, and there's so many rumors, and some things have turned out to be true. A lot of things have turned out to be BS. So, just in the opinion of Shane Jenkins, do you think the FBI used citizens, as posing as Trump supporters that day to either stir up the crowd, be provocateurs? Do you feel that A, were they there, and B, do you feel that there were any ever among us and while we were incarcerated?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There, without a doubt, and it may not be, it could be FBI, it could be actual FBI agents, it could be cooperative informants or paid snitches that are on the payroll that live off the FBI year round, generating cases, whether it's like, hey, we need some automatic weapons, or a lot of people don't understand how these things operate. The feds will, like, I could be like, hey, Barry, I've got some automatic weapons for sale. Would you like to buy some?
Absolutely fucking not.
And the FBI is
fuck
like,
you. Prank caller.
And the FBI is giving me the guns to sell to you so I can get you. And you may not even be interested in some guns. We're like, man, those are badass guns. I want some. And then now,
it's heartbreaking because when I first got locked up, I spent some time in juvenile hall, and then after that, I was a pretty productive citizen for the most part. Slightly immature at times, but I never got in trouble again until January 6th. And when you first got in there, I start hearing these stories, and you blow them off as okay. We'll get it. Everyone's innocent in prison, but then you start to see this reoccurring scenario from all these different people from all over the country, from all these prisons and jails you get to. And I'll give you the specifics of one, but I heard this same fucking story over and over again. The Reader's Digest version, there was a guy, he did 20 years in prison for selling drugs. He did it. He was involved. He had Italian restaurants in New York, and he was pushing shit out of there. He admits it. 20 years, 20 fucking years. And he got out. He opened up another restaurant, met a woman. The woman had a daughter who was like 19. He was with her for 2 years. He was on probation. One of his friends called him up and asked him if he would hold some shit for him. And he said, absolutely not. And he said, get the fuck out of here. Well, they went and arrested him for conspiracy and sentenced him to another 20 years in fucking prison. And he was going to die there. And I heard that story first in the first couple weeks of getting locked up, because I was in transit with this man. And when I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I've seen this same scenario over and over and over again, I started to do my own research. And let me tell you something. The FBI has a specific department that deals with people on parole for drug trafficking, specifically to try to case them up in another case and put them back in prison.
To generate a
that's
case.
All that's the only reason they exist.
Right. And not an organic case either. Not saying like,
no,
I'm buying drugs from Barry, I get pinched, I tell on Barry, now they raid your house. You were selling drugs. This is something saying, hey, Shane, you work for the FBI. We want you to approach Barry and say, hey, well, man, I got a parole hearing, and I need you to hold this gun for me until my parole officer leaves. Then I go give it to you. Knowing the FBI,
and sometimes these people are even saying, no, I don't want it. And they're getting a conspiracy case on them and going back to prison for the rest of their life. This is happening over and over and over again, ladies and gentlemen. And that's another aspect, of we the J6ers.com is we know that our calling is from God is to not forget the men and women we were locked up.
And I'll get back to the question. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked on you, but
it's all right.
I was gonna say there's one thing we know our government specializes in, and we know it's the color revolutions. They go into these other countries and they create these inorganic revolutions and overthrow regimes and governments and different things like that. And so our CIA and FBI and the DIA and the DOD and the DHS and the HHS and the NSA and the whoever else, any other three-letter agency that I probably left out, the Secret Service, whoever it is, they have these people that work for them, whether they're informally, like on a blacklist payroll or whatever it is. We know that these people are there, and we know that Pelosi and Muriel Bowser left the guard down on the Capitol that day. We know that there were 200 Capitol Police officers there on January 6th, which was only 10% of the total of officers that were supposed to be there. There's 2,000 officers. So let's say it's a day shift and a night shift. Half of them should have been there, which would be 1,000 officers. There's only 200. And so the posturing of security that day, not to mention the fact that the 3 months prior to that, and according to Troy Nell's books, they received briefings that there was the potential for violence to happen on January 6th. They not only that, but I feel like there was some staging by these groups. I got into some of these group chats because I was going to go to DC, and I had never been to DC, and I wanted to know what everybody was doing and how they were doing it. In these group chats, these Zoom calls that they had before January 6th, they were saying, hey, there's been stabbings in DC. They expect Antifa and BLM to be there. So you need to be not armed with guns because DC is a gun-free zone. But they were saying, be prepared to protect yourself, whether that's pepper spray or an axe handle flag stick or whatever it is, which was a laying people wore stab-proof vests or flak jackets or whatever. It wasn't because there was an intention to fight the police. It was because they were telling people, hey, you got to be prepared because things are going to happen. It's going to go down. You better be ready. And so,
Every member of the Proud Boys that you saw with a flak jacket on did not have a plate in it. They had a cutting board or a
mm,
piece of wood to prevent a stabbing, not
mm,
bulletproof vests. They none of them wore bulletproof vests, so
mm.
a lot of people don't know that.
But that was a layer of the, just like anybody that said, well, they got into a fight with the police officers, and look, he had a plate carrier on or a ballistic helmet because
Yeah,
that was pre-planning, which was, tried to show I guess a premeditated um, stance on our part to
yeah,
overthrow the government. But
yeah. But if you watched the riots all year long and all summer long, and you've seen the people that were going out there to finally say no, these were street riots. I mean, there was pepper spray, collapsible batons, brass knuckles, bottles of frozen urine. I
mm,
mean, things were ugly. So that's what people were preparing for. They weren't preparing to go to war with Capitol freaking police, because if they had been, that was the worst preparation in the history. Basically January 6th is the day that soccer moms and baseball dads, a couple redneck social media influencers, a few black dudes no one wants to talk about, and a really popular gay guy almost overthrew the fucking US government. I mean, come on, guys. Let's be real here. If that was really what you believe, then you should really be supporting Doge, because your tax dollars in that department are not being spent wisely. For
Tom
fuck's
Tillis,
sake.
Tom Tillis believes it, and I watched the interview with Ed Martin on Tucker Carlson today, and he said the thing with Tom Tillis is he believes he drank the deep state Kool-Aid that said that January 6th was a, whatever, mob was set to destroy the Capitol and overthrow the government. He believes that in his heart. That's what he believes. He believes trespassers should have gotten 3 months to 3 years. 3 years for trespassing? Like,
Right. But does Tom Tillis feel that same way about Stephen Colbert's crew, or the Brett Kavanaugh fucking shitbags, or
hell
any
no.
any time the left hears a word they don't like and it wants to have a fucking temper tantrum on the floor of Capitol building? Where's Tom Tillis then? Probably picking his wife's underwear out of his butt crack is where he's at. What a fucking pussy. And let's be clear, nobody drinks the deep state Kool-Aid, okay? You say the things they need you to say because either A, they're going to destroy you if you don't, or you're heavily benefiting from the boys club.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest, because you play the game and you play the game for a fucking reason. You don't play the game because you're fucking stupid anymore,
Yeah.
okay?
You're on the take.
86 fucking gender idiots. Oh God, don't even get me started. This is supposed to be a family show. So, let's go back to January 6th. You Now that you're out of prison, what is your message that you hope to bring the American people, not just about understanding Shane Jenkins' story in the process of January 6th and what that looked like for you, but also what do you want to take to the American people to hopefully leave this country a better place than you found it moving forward?
First and foremost, I want to share. I mean, what we're doing here. I want the American people to see us for the people that we are. The dads, the parents, the men, the church going, the Christian guys with the bad backstory with the redemption, laid over the top of it, like mine is. And um, I want people to see that, to see who we are and see our hearts. But I also um, I want people to understand that we didn't pick this fight. This fight picked us. And so it is my goal and my mission to hold our elected representatives to account, like this Tom Tillis clown or John Cornyn here in Texas or Mitch McConnell or any of these rhinos. I want to be an active role player in helping expose these rhinos, because it's one thing for the Democrats to act the way they do. We expect that. For the most part, especially the extreme ones, they are the enemy. But what I cannot tolerate is somebody that's in our own camp and stabbing us in the back. And so, contrary to what a lot of people on the right believe, it's not just a Democrat problem that a Democrat created scenario that got us in the situation we're in. This was both parties um, operating under this managed decline of America for the last 60 or so years. Um, it's very intentional, and it's like the Democrats don't know how to lose. They were willing to fight to the death to win, and Republicans do not know how to win, and it's so frustrating. And so, it is my desire to encourage the Republicans who are willing to fight, and to get rid of the ones who are either on the take or weak or a liberal disguised as a conservative. So I just want to, we have an opportunity because, like Benjamin Franklin said, you have a republic if you can keep it, right? And keeping it means being actively involved and actively engaged in this experiment that is the United States of America, this republic that we have. So we've got to keep our eye on the football, and we've got to keep engaged. And I just believe that we have a role to play in it, and that they picked on the wrong people. And so I'm looking forward to being engaged in this fight for the long run.
That's yeah. Well, that's awesome because if we, I don't think we're going to have a platform forever as far as the J6ers. I believe that we have a very limited time to try to get out there while we have momentum and there's people that want to listen to us because unfortunately, and I think this is how most things work in life, there's going to be people that ruin it for everybody. And so our time is limited and we need to get out there and meet people and the people that are willing to listen to us to make your own determination if you think we're domestic terrorists or not. That's what we aim to do. Look us in the eyes, meet us in person, and you can do that at wethej6ers.com. You can book a lot of these very, very well vetted men and women that speak brilliantly, in my personal humble opinion, about their experience, not only from their point of view, but what we can do as a nation to fix it. And Shane, you said something very interesting that I hold dear to my heart, and that is, the primaries. And that's where we have an opportunity to put people like Cornyn in Texas in his place. So I want to know that I can hold you accountable, and I want to know that you're going to be doing what you said and being involved in Texas and waking up Texans, because Texans, let's face it, man, they've got a lot of good Americans out there in that great state. And we need to activate them because you're right. We need to be activists. So I'm going to hold you accountable. I want to hear you make some noise because Cornyn is not an American first Republican. Cornyn, it will get in the way in the long run, even if he plays the game before the midterms, because he's going to kiss your ass, America. But when it comes down to it, he will fucking betray us. We don't have to look any further than his past. So primaries, we got to get there.
We got
Shane,
we got Ken Paxton running. He's the attorney
love
general
that
now.
guy.
And he knows what it is to have the government be weaponized against him, to have the machine go after him. So he's always been 100% behind Donald Trump. And so I look forward to supporting him. There's another guy that I've been interacting with on X that I like as well. So we'll see. But I'm definitely not going to be supporting John Cornyn. That is for sure.
It's not just about not supporting him. It's getting conservatives to the polls in the primaries to vote this fucker out of office and get the right person in. That's the hard part. These Marxist far left shitbags that want to teach your kids queer and transgender studies in the second grade. They'll wake up at 4 a.m. in a fucking fire hailstorm with acid rain, walk on razor blades so they can put into office or on the school board any communist worshiping, multi-cat owning with one litter box they keep in the kitchen, lip ring fucking liberal as a school board member. They'll get up and vote for him while conservatives continuously fall asleep at the wheel. So you have to, Shane, you're going to have to light a fire up underneath those districts' ass to get up and vote that guy out of the primaries, because between him and James Lankford, you piece of shit out of Oklahoma, that's another one that I would love to see primaried out, because you're right. Republicans are the problem too. This is not just Democrats. And anyone that has a problem with the words America first, get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah, well, neocons, you got, and I mean, you got Collins, Murkowski, Lindsey Graham, John Thune. Like there, we could. There's so
Yeah,
many.
Thune, that's
Like
another
there's
one.
any
Uh,
number of Mitch McConnell esque
Well,
players.
because Republicans they fall for the bullshit too easily. You know, these guys they don't do anything for 2 to 4 years. They come in front of the public with their stupid expensive commercials, wrangling a fucking bull, spinning a rope around their fucking head with an American flag, riding an eagle with a AR-15, and they, I'm a Republican. You vote for me, America. I chew tobacco. Check out my boots, and we fucking fall for it every time.
Mhm.
When you just have to look that this idiot voted to allow boys and girls bathrooms. You know, just I mean, this it's right in front of your face, America. So primaries, we can't waste that opportunity.
Absolutely not. And I'm concerned too about this. Sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine for what, or how did they, how were they acting during COVID? What did they want to do on January 6th? What was their vote that day? Like there's a lot of things that I want to look
Yeah.
at, and you're not going
I
to.
mean, everyone's kissing this Nancy Mace ass. You know, Nancy voted to impeach Trump. So, I mean, now look, I'm not gonna. People change their points of views. I mean, look at JD Vance. So, I mean, I'm one of them. I wasn't on board with Trump in the beginning of 2016. I wasn't sold, and then, well, I did my fucking research, and there was no turning back after that. So, I'm not going to fault anybody but you got to come out and say, hey, I fucked up. I got it wrong. I made a mistake, and this is. I mean, look, Tulsi Gabbard, great example. I
Mhm.
mean, come out and say it. Or RFK, another one. So, you know, um, let's end it. Let's end it here. I want to give you the last words. Um, if I'm a conservative chairman or something, and I'm going to book Shane Jenkins, the latchkey kid, the adopted street thug, did prison time, found Christ, showed up for his country, was labeled a terrorist, and is still here, still a Christian, still loving his country. What is it? What is it that you're going to give me? What does it look like? What are you going to tell me about your story and about what you want to do going forward for the future of America?
Yeah, I would say if you want to hear a story of redemption, of God salvaging somebody's destiny from busting the gates of hell wide open, if you want to hear a story of somebody who was attacked and who the government attempted to crush under their boot, but refused to give in and refused to fold, and who is willing to continue to fight and still share his love and mercy that God put in his heart, then I would say book us to share that story. And I know that all the other guys on the list are awesome, and I love the different perspectives because you got everybody comes from kind of a different background and different history, and there's just a lot of different perspectives, and we look forward to sharing our stories. It's not something that you'll regret, and it'll be a very interesting evening if you do get us out to share our story. So we'd love to do that.
Now, I think it's safe to assume that if the first several people that book you can tell them a story or something that no one has ever heard before. I'm pretty sure we can get that out of you for at least the first 7 to 10 bookings, maybe more.
I may have to
Never,
withhold names, but
never before, never. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. We're not here to throw anyone under the bus. We love all our J6ers. We didn't always agree and see eye to eye, and we still don't. But there's not one of these men and women that I would ever want to know something bad happened to. I hope that all of them have prosperous lives and leave this country and world a better place than they found it. And I think a lot of them are. I tell you what, man, we are a good group of men and women. The knucklehead retards that some of us are, myself included. So
I don't know.
yeah. So I'm nobody to judge anyone. I have a lot of respect for these men and women. There's some good people. Um, all right, Shane. Well, if there was one last thing, if there was one thing that you think is most important for the American people to know about January 6th, that day, or what occurred while we were incarcerated, what would you say that thing is that you think people need to know?
Just want people to understand and it's getting out there, but I want people to understand that 4 protesters died on January 6th. That they claimed for years and years that 12 to 15 police officers died on January 6th, and then
They still
7,
say this. They
yeah,
still Hakeem Jeffries still says this.
yeah, 7 to 12 committed suicide after after January 6th as a result of it, which there's
Matthew
never been
Perez.
proof there. Well, I'm saying, the people who died on January 6th are protesters, and then the people who committed suicide to avoid coming to prison and enduring what we endured. I think the public needs to know that, and they didn't know that police officers did not kill themselves as a result of January 6th, and there's never been any proof of that, nor did any of them die on January 6th as a result of anything that happened on January 6th, and the public needs to know that. But we want to honor the fallen of January 6th, whether it's with a monument or just telling their stories.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty telling of the character of the people on the right. No, no group is perfect. Everyone has bad apples, but what we witnessed in 2020 after the unfortunate but in my personal opinion wrongly characterized death of George Floyd, we seen the backlash and the excuse for very nefarious people to do very bad things all across the country. We seen that play out, and two protesters were brutally murdered that day, Ashley Babbitt and Roseanne Boylan. And although that day it created a lot of anger and animosity, but you didn't see that carry out into the streets of the cities that we love and live in, because it's truly not who we are now, and it wasn't who we were that day. And we hope to talk about that with you in person. So check out the website, wethej6ers.com. You can see more about Shane and book him for a speaking engagement at wethej6ers.com/Shane-Jenkins, and see more about his story there and other men and women that we are going to highlight for you. So Shane, thanks for telling your story. Wanted to get this content out there to so people can get a chance to see who you are. But no spoiler alert, but you definitely can tell people some very secretive things if they do book you. So
Right.
I know a few of them. I might, depending on who gets the first booking here, I might tell them and steal your thunder. And, we were DC solitary shoe bunkies.
Roommates,
That's
cellmates.
kind of how we got to know each other. We were handcuffed and thrown into kind of a dual solitary. It's not solitary if you got another dude in the room.
Well, it is solitary if they're not letting you out of there. Like they're still locked in that little cage for that long.
Yeah. I mean, but I'll tell you right now, I was in quite a few solitary and shoe specialty housing unit situations in my prison bid, and DC was fucking awesome.
I just want to say thank you, Barry. I don't know who the other person is helping put this together, but man, thank y'all very much for including me. And
well, this is a one-man show, bro. This is all me. Yeah,
okay.
Well,
there you go. Yeah. Well, thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Shane. And I'll talk to you soon, brother. Let's go, man. We're gonna tell our stories. WeTheJ6ers.com.